Thank you, Craig. All right, let's start. This is our monthly workshop meeting for the Springfield Township Board of Commissioners. We are expecting John Cobb, but at this point, everybody else is here. And we have a nice crowd this evening. Thank you for being here. Any Zoomers, Craig? We got 3 Zoomers. Okay. Welcome to the Zoomers or Zoomies, whatever. All right. So the way that our Monday workshop meetings work, this is kind of where the sausage is made. We go through issues in detail, but no formal action is taken tonight. Our Wednesday business meeting is when we take formal votes on things. And we typically start with matters of the engineer. And when he's done, he can be excused. And then we'll get right into, we'll take a poll of the audience, what you folks are here for. We'll try to get to those items first. The only set thing we have is we have a couple interviews for an advisory position, or not an advisory, for a zoning board alternate member. And those interviews are scheduled for 8 and 8:15. So other than that, we'll get to the items that folks are here live for. Okay, so Tim, you're up.
Great, Mr. Lee. Thank you very much. Pretty light engineering agenda this evening. I think the only thing for consideration on Wednesday night is the 210 Sunnybrook subdivision application. Recall there's an existing single family home on kind of a double lot. So the proposal is to raise the existing house, subdivide the property in 2 and build 2 new single family homes. Pretty benign application. As a condition of the approval that Jim's office prepared, I do have a couple of lingering grading stormwater concerns that I met on site with the developer. I have every expectation that a revised set of plans will address those drainage concerns. Also, Mark Petticow and I met with an adjacent neighbor who had some concerns. I think we were able to ease those fears. So I think that application is in pretty good shape tonight, barring any board questions.
Okay.
Yeah, the only other thing I wanted to note was the cartway width that you'd be doing, granting a deferral to their waiver request for the width of the street. The rest of the street is all the same. They didn't want to create a wider section.
So we're just matching what's there.
Yeah.
Matching what's there, correct.
But it's a deferral instead of an outright waiver, so that if you ever decide someday that you wanted to do it, you're not locked into that.
Right.
Nobody can raise the issue.
Okay.
But the plan does show curbs, right?
Yeah, so there is actually, there are curbs there today, but the plan calls for replacing those curbs.
Well, they're wooden curbs. Huh?
Yeah, they are wooden curbs.
You're not
Peter,
putting- you're not
yes.
putting wooden curbs back.
We're
in,
not
right?
putting the wooden curbs
Oh,
back.
good.
Good eye out there for sure.
Good.
Is that back when they had wooden teeth? They would
Yeah,
do
something like
wooden curbs?
that, Jim, right, exactly.
Yes.
Just by way of information, recall that we have been working with the owner of 117 East Mill Road to discuss the opportunity for an easement that would allow us to create a walking trail between East Mill and Carrollton. We just heard last Thursday from that homeowner that he is putting the brakes on that project, taking pause. He's not certain that he wants to work and allow that public passage through his private property. So I don't know that it's a completely dead issue, but for the time being, it is certainly on pause pursuant to that email we received. Integrity Avenue Basin, I don't know if you've been by, but it's looking pretty good. All the amended soils are placed, the grading is done, the outlet structures are complete. Fencing's going in starting on the 8th. Mike and I believe the wetland planting was going in today, although I didn't get down there today to check myself. But the final planting and final fencing should be in a couple of days, and really have a nice project to show our commitment to stormwater improvements in the community for sure. Speaking of which, next on our project list is that Skyline Drive detention basin retrofit. Equipment's on site. That project is also continuing or starting as we discussed. Andy's office and Jim's office spent some time with the homeowners association, putting together an agreement that kind of memorializes what portion of the basin remains the HOA responsibility to maintain, and what part of the basin that we as the township will take on to maintain those stormwater improvements, the best management practice, soils and plant material in the bottom. So all pretty good stuff.
Yeah, if I could just add on to
Please.
that, we do have the signed agreement from the HOA, so I'll like to add that to your agenda, authorization to sign that.
Okay.
So
as
give
part
us
of your
copies.
Wednesday.
or-
Yeah, I'll give you copies. I'll send it out tomorrow. I just
Yeah,
got
email. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll email
Yeah.
it. It's actually good because it'll memorialize what their responsibilities are, something that's kind of like a little looser than we'd like right now because of the age of the subdivision. So,
Yeah. And it's a private development, a private street. So the storm sewer in the streets and leading into the basin is all privately owned and maintained.
Yeah.
And so I think this agreement does a good job of memorializing, as Mike says.
Is that all in one agreement, the post and the,
It's a
Construction.
temporary construction easement agreement, and then it's like a post-construction.
maintenance agreement? or-
Maintenance responsibility.
Yep. We actually did hear from the school district today as well. They're a little bit concerned about the proximity of equipment to the school property. So we'll be on that tomorrow to make sure we get the contractor to move some stuff back away from the school line for sure. That's all that I had this evening, barring any questions. Peter?
Just going back to Integrity Avenue
Yes.
again. The property owners there are still owning that property where the basin is. Is that correct? I mean, we
The
didn't
underlying real estate is still owned by the individual.
individuals.
And we have an easement on top of that.
Okay.
For, ability to build.
Do you think that easement is detrimental to value?
Well, and, recall that we've had the properties in place.
Yes, yes.
Both easement, and there was some diminution in value because of that, easement and the inability for us to use that property.
Okay,
We can compensate them for that.
okay. Do you have the start date on the townhouses at Pennybrook?
Oh, good question. Actually, tomorrow afternoon, we should have put that in my report. We are scheduled to have a free demolition meeting. So, recall that last month, we discussed an ability to allow WB Home to begin some demolition of the structures on that property and the removal of.
Yeah.
And so we have an agreement put in place, there is some financial security in place. And we're meeting tomorrow to make sure that everyone's on the same page with regard to expectations and hours of operation and.
So you think the start is this week?
So that probably the demolition project will start maybe this week or early next week.
Okay,
The actual start of construction is still a little ways off, only because they're still awaiting some permits and some final.
okay.
We'll have a better feel for the actual date that they plan on doing the
After
demolition
tomorrow.
after tomorrow. But they owe us the utility shut off, because we haven't issued a permit yet, so they owe us the utility shut offs, they owe us certification that the buildings have been exterminated. Couple of other loose ends that they have to deal with.
There's kind of like a dangling electrical
Yes,
line.
there is.
That's a Pico issue. We were out there, we identified it when we met with the developer, go over, what were we going over with them?
I think.
Tree removal or
the trail,
driveway?
Parking and tree.
That's right, we were looking to see if we
Yeah.
could save a couple of trees.
It's a pretty substantial,
Yeah, it's really, if you think configuration of power supply, it's only for 3 branches.
Yeah, yeah.
Goes high, and evidently everyone is kind of aware of it, Pico certainly as well as.
just a little unusual, but yeah. And can you just give me a thumbnail as to Avondale Road, Avondale?
That's the one where the sump pump discharges to the curb line and
We were out there again, and I guess, well, Ian and I took another walk out there. And, we hopefully will be paving that and area next summer. And so this might be the opportunity to put some drainage in Avondale, to take care of that low flow condition that has persisted for the longest time.
Okay.
It's runoff from the back of the synagogue and some pump discharge.
So we've done no work yet
They
there.
have not.
Okay, so all the work that's been done there is Pico.
correct.
That's
The new gas line and all that kind of good stuff. Okay. But you're still in engineering on this, on this?
Yeah, well, I think the concept is out there. We haven't really done any engineering work.
Okay.
And it's not gonna be a sophisticated. design.
No, I understand. Yeah.
We want to do.
Yeah. We wanna take the opportunity before we resurface the road. to
Yes,
try and
yes,
do it.
yes, I agree. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Anybody else, anything for Tim?
Great.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Thanks.
Wonderful meeting.
You get out here to find this. So,
Give it a raise.
See you tomorrow, Tim.
yeah.
Great. So I'm going to poll the audience real quick, see what folks are here for. Some people here for the Walnut Ave / 10 car site proposals, right? What else are folks here for? Sunnybrook? Okay.
Yeah, refugee.
Yep. Okay. Any other issues? Yep. Okay. Any other specific issues here? No? Okay. All right. Why don't do you have any questions about the Sunnybrook project specifically? Because our engineer, we did just go over that. I don't know that we have any much other feedback. It's pretty far along, but we'll certainly take your comment or question if you like. And just as a reminder to everyone, the video is recorded and everything, so please, if you're going to speak, come to the microphone. Start with your name and address. Good. Okay, thank you. All right, why don't we talk about the refugee program? If you want to, either of you want to come to the microphone?
Roy Hanshaw, Flowertown. I had heard Don Giordano the other day interviewing you on the radio. And I just was interested. I've heard a lot of rumors, and I happen to live right down the street from the company. And I just wanted to see if there is a plan to actually house refugees there, or is this something that's just being discussed?
Yeah, it sounds like that's a rumor that's unsubstantiated. So just for everyone's benefit, there was a letter that I signed on in support of back in when the heck was it? Probably late August.
Right.
And it was basically twofold. It's you can see it online. You can read the letter and see what it says. Basically, it's supporting the U.S. refugee program that was enacted into law in 1980 under the U.S. Refugee Act. It was signed under Carter. It was championed under Reagan. It's been the law of the land for 40 some years. It's a form of legal immigration. And basically this letter was urging the administration to keep it solvent, keep it going, support of it, and also that we want our communities to be welcoming of people who come through that program. So that's it. And I signed on it personally. There's no township policy. There's no speaking for anyone else, whether it's another board member or staff or community member. We're not asking for specific refugees to come here or house them. The rumor got back to me that people thought we had a plan to house refugees at the Flowertown Country Club. There's just no basis for that whatsoever.
One question I had though, and I don't know, you could clarify this point. Apparently in the contract of the country club, there is wording that says if for any reason that the township decided to bring in refugees, that the country club would have to more or less, have to go along with the wishes.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that at all.
Yeah, I'm pretty familiar with the lease, and I
Okay.
don't recall.
And,
seeing
and
anything.
to be clear, the program that I express support for has nothing to do with bringing in refugees. It's basically saying that federal program that exists that I support. It has nothing, when a refugee is granted legal status, they're free to live wherever they want and can afford to. And then that's why you see, in the news, the Springfield, Ohio, the other towns that had, the most recent in the news are these Haitian refugees that have come over the years and have worked in those towns. There was a symbiosis there where the town needed workers and they needed somewhere to go and settle. But just like any legal immigrant, they can go live wherever they want. They want to go rent a home or buy a home. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I will reiterate that I am welcoming of any legal immigrants or legal refugees. If they want to live here, I welcome them. But the township itself is not asking for it or giving them shelter or giving them homes. That's just not happening. Yep, you're welcome. I think so.
Doesn't sound like it's on.
Okay, good.
Turned off, wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That good?
I think it's on now.
We got there.
We can hear you. I don't know if it's from the microphone or
I
just
think that's on now.
I think it's recorded.
It's recording, I'm seeing.
Okay.
you're saying, okay. All right.
Same topic about.
We need your name and town.
Sure. Okay. John English, 603 Bradford Road, Portland, PA. And I'm here to talk about the USRP, which is United States Refugee Admission Program. And I think what brought concern to this is this is nearly 500 bipartisan state and local officials that basically you're welcoming refugees into your community. I understand, but when you say it was from a personal capacity, I just think when you said you were commissioner, that would lead you to believe that it was not in just a personal capacity. All state and local elected leaders, we spot, and this was a letter, I'm sorry, back. This was a letter to the president of the United States. And what they were doing was they're giving support for the future projections of refugees into the country. And Mr. Lee had signed sustain to that as commissioner. I mean, we can argue whether or not it was a personal or professional status of which he represented us, but to me, I look at that as a member of the community. And Mr. Lee signed with that as a commissioner, so that was directly impact us. All state, as state and local elected leaders, we aspire to make our community places where newcomers have an equitable chance to contribute and thrive. Another quote was, "Our community stands ready to welcome refugees who want to restart their lives in safety." All wonderful points, and I understand Jim's enthusiasm, and I heard him on the radio as well. We welcome refugees, we want refugees. And a letter to the president with 500 other people. Well, where do you think the government's going to start when they start replacing refugees? And that's great. And the debate tonight is we're not going to talk about, why we want refugees, why you don't want refugees. I just want to know from the commission if this is asked of us to accept refugees, will there be transparency? Will there be a policy? Is there a policy already in place? I'm just not sure. I'm a little blindsided on a bit with this. And my concern was that Mr. Lee said he'll put a statement out on Facebook, and a statement with distribution list. I'm not on his Facebook, I'm not friends with Facebook. I'm not on this distribution list. And I am a resident of the community, homeowner, taxpayer. And that kind of annoyed me a little bit. And my problem is not with refugees. I'm just saying, if Mr. Lee is going to write a letter and sign his name to it, pretty much saying, well, here's the open door. We're here. We got your back. Order more refugees. Well, where's the plan? Is there a plan? Is there a policy in place? It has nothing to do with personal opinion. I'm just saying, is there a policy in place? Is there a plan in place to accept these refugees? And that's the other reason I'm here tonight. I'd love to go pick refugees up at the airport. I saw that. I'd love to help, but I'm saying only one part of the community knows about it. I think that's where the application is, not so much refugees. There's only a certain segment knows about it. Jim's distribution list or Facebook friends, and that's really what I'm here. That's what I say. I hope that if we are called upon in this letter to the president, which I'm sure you all have read, as the president of the United States, saying, yes, here we are. They're going to turn around and say, well, let's start the path of least resistance, which is wonderful. But how can we accommodate? How are the teachers? Are they going to compensate them? Are they going to compensate our law enforcement? Where are they going to live? This Montgomery County housing program.
it brings alarm. It really does. So I'm just not want to sit back and say, well, but that's why I'm here tonight. I thank you for your time. And I guess in short, I'm just trying to say there is, if we are called upon to accept refugees, we'll be transparent to the community on how we can help. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to reiterate and make clear again that someone who comes to this country and achieves legal status can live wherever they want. They can rent wherever they want. They have the rights. I'm not an expert in this, so I was going to say rights as a citizen, and that's not what I mean. But if they're here legal, they can go rent a house wherever they want. They can live wherever they want. You use the phrase, "We're going to order more refugees." I don't know what that means. We're not ordering anyone.
Well, no, I mean, so you're giving the order saying, yes, I accept it as a commissioner. You have a, you have.
I'm saying,
Political standing, Jim, and you say that you wrote this personally. It's not like you wrote this in the Springfield Times saying Jim Lee. You wrote it as commissioner of Springfield Township. And there wasn't 500 people in Montgomery County. It was a limited number of people. And I'm just not sure where your thought pattern was, thinking that we can accommodate this. Is there a labor force that we need built? Why? What benefit a refugee from living here? Was it, what?
I don't think you're fully understanding.
I'm a little confused, yeah, I mean, the letter is not asking for refugees to come here. The letter is in support of a law that's been in existence for 54 years.
Exactly.
And
but
to
you also
sustain
need-
it.
Okay.
I mean, that's all. There's no action item other than maintaining law.
Are you aware that we're having a refugee crisis in America right now?
I mean, we do
Are you-
have
would you
refugees
admit to
here.
that?
We have refugees here, yeah,
You want to
sure.
think it's a crisis?
We've been accepting refugees for our entire existence.
Well, we were, we're not bipartisan.
We have been and we continue to be. I mean, that's who we are.
Never, they are.
That's not true. Throughout the 80s, a lot of years, about 200,000 per year were
You
accepted.
know what, I'm not here to debate. No.
Well, you just said a fact. I'm giving you the facts. Last year in 2023, there was about 61,000 refugees admitted on this program compared to almost 200,000 in many years in the 1980s in the regular administration. So to say that you're seeing him at levels never before, it's just not accurate. I'm not saying that there's not a problem with
Honestly, I hope you're joking.
which part.
You don't think that there's not a refugee crisis?
Well, can I ask a question? Are you talking about people that are legally committed to the country versus people that are illegally committed to the country?
Absolutely not. What I'm saying, I think this,
I think
with
there's
the
a
ramp
distinction.
up of the program, I'm not gonna get tripped up. But
I'm just saying, they're legally, and I understand where you're coming from, right? You're perceiving that there's an issue and a crisis, and we're not, again, I'm not debating the numbers and things like that. But I think what we're trying to say is, the people that are here legally, I don't think anything in the letter was rolling out in the red carpet saying that we support them. If they're here legally, they can live in New York, Springfield, they can live in Reading, anywhere in New York, right? So, we're not obligated to provide housing. We're not obligated to provide work for people who are here legally. It's up to them to make their own way, just like we do.
well, it's not that I'm signing with it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's the federal government.
They don't, the federal government doesn't assign a refugee to a place.
Okay. Good. Okay. All right.
The
Thank
federal government doesn't come and say, hey, you gotta move to Springfield.
you. No, they don't at all. They go where they're needed. Exactly, like where it's, I mean, to me, it's, this is the right thing to do, or the wrong thing to do, like that's not the debate, but there's nothing here to offer that behind.
If I were
signed this
legal-
letter and said, as a community, that's my only concern here tonight.
I understand.
All right, I can't get into the numbers and this and that. I'm saying,
My only point, is, I were a legal refugee coming to this country, I would go with a job. If there's not a job here, well, I know.
exactly.
Agreements.
Yep. And just to clarify, I mean, it sounds like we're at the end of this conversation, but about me signing personally. So this was signed by whoever wanted to sign it personally, who were elected officials. So it's a group of elected officials that said, we as elected officials support this. Because I'm an elected official doesn't mean I can't have a personal opinion and be in this position. So if a lawyer, well, you weren't invited because you're not an elected official, but I'm sure there's lots of letters you can sign. If someone as, Steve, I'll let you have your piece. I'm trying to clarify. The point that you said is your only concern. Now, if you're a lawyer, you can sign a letter that lawyers are invited to sign and say, we as a lawyer all support this. It doesn't mean they're speaking for their firm. It doesn't mean they're speaking for every lawyer in the industry. It means I am this type of position and I support it. So that's merely what this was. So you have nothing to worry about. There's no policy.
I'm not worried about anything. I'm just saying, if it were to come to that and we were called upon, since you did raise your hand and say, yes, we are welcoming, which is fantastic. Is there a policy, is there a payment plan in place? And if it did come to that, will we be notified, the public, other than your distribution list?
I don't know what policy you could imagine. I mean, if there's a refugee that's here legally and they want to live or work or rent here, they can. And I don't know that we can legally stop them. Are we going to tell them you're not allowed to rent a house in Springfield?
You know what? Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
James Oswald. I don't know if this will help, but I've worked with refugees for years. And lots of times when the families come over, they're sponsored by a church or a group of people. And they provide the housing, they provide all that stuff. And then they work with them to get jobs, wherever the jobs are. And that's kind of it. And the other company miners that have come, they are now, I would say 90% of the ones that I work with are now very much contributing members of society. And refugees that we already have in the township are also contributing members of society. So I don't know if that really is anything or not, but that's kind of the way it's been.
Great. Thank you.
Just to clarify, I mean, I'm a daughter of refugees. This hits home to me that I hope that this township is welcoming to refugees. It sounds like we're in agreement that we are. And so just to be clear, for anyone that's out there who needs assistance, it sounds like there are resources among us, as Jane mentioned, and I hope that we're going to be a welcoming community. I heard the question or the statement, where are we now after all those refugees? By the way, my family came after the secret war in Laos. And part of the reason for a program like this was for my family. And I sit here today. And so for those out there who may watch this, who may experience this type of reaction to the idea that folks can come here, we are contributing members of society. My parents contribute greatly to Ohio, where I originally came from. And can imagine that's a very difficult conversation and topic to see displayed in national news. It's difficult to hear this now, not because I don't appreciate your concern that are there policies in place? Can we accommodate more people in general in this community? But I'm concerned that it's directed specifically at refugees. I hope anyone who's watching who's at all concerned, you should know that you're welcome here, and we welcome anyone here, any color, creed, nationality, whatever, wherever you come from, and we wish you well.
Okay. Anyone else on that topic? Are we good to move on? All right, let's talk about Walnut Avenue. Any public comment? Just status? Okay, well, let's talk about it. We have time to hit that one, I think. Mike, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Really no action for you tonight.
But
That is J, tab J. Okay, so just a quick update of where we are. So there was a committee formed a while ago to manage the potential design process of a public park at the Walnut Avenue site, the former tank car property site. That committee has met for, I don't know, is it a year now? Something like that. So the committee put together a request for proposals for a firm to put together a master plan for us. We got some grant funding to help defray that cost. And this board authorized the advertisement of that RFP, whenever that was, a month or two ago. And the committee just received back 5 proposals from architectural firms. And that committee met the other day, last week, reviewed those, and it's now in front of the board to take a look at those proposals and authorize next steps, which would basically be whatever the short list is, interviewing those firms and then hiring from there. So very similar to the process we just went through with the recreation center project that's going on. This one's a little smaller in scope, so a little bit easier to manage, but equally as important to our community. So initially, the committee had whittled down the 5 to 3 to interview. Also happened to be the 3 least expensive. There was a resident who attended a lot of these committee meetings that had advocated for one additional firm. It really wasn't for that particular firm, but it was for a sub that they thought was helpful to have in the mix that works with that firm. So I made the suggestion of reaching out to that firm because their number was high on the higher end, if they wanted to revise their number because they weren't selected on the short list or clarify their bid. So they came back. They're still not in the top 3. So it's really up to us if we want to stick with the 3 and interview those, or if anyone has opinions about the 2 that weren't on the short list. You've got those proposals. And I will just say about that one subs that was, or a vendor rather, that vendor could work with any architect, right? So, so that really wasn't that significant. It was more of a courtesy based on that suggestion. So anyone has any comments or questions?
I think 2 of the committee members had responded in emails that they wish to have them be considered as part of the interview process, and I don't see a problem with that. I know residents, also other members of the committee, as well as some residents expressed that they don't want them to be considered. I think it doesn't harm us to interview more than it, and if they've already, submitted, and as courtesy to those who are participating in the process. Toss up means no issue interviewing them.
Yeah. Just one, let me clarify a little bit too. The vendor that the person was advocating for was a synthetic turf company that does and has done a lot of synthetic turfs in the area. So that was of their concern. And I just want to make it very clear, me suggesting looping that in was not to say that there's any preference whether that's going to be a part of the project or not, in any way, shape, or form. It was really just a courtesy to someone who was contributing to those committees. But there's no thumb on the scale of any of that. Part of this master plan process, one of the first things that architect will be tasked with is re-engaging the community, re-engaging that committee to do a needs assessment of what is really going to work there. So there's nothing predetermined in terms of who we interview. So, I mean, I'm fine either way. I'm fine with the top 3. There's no harm in interviewing a 4th. It's not going to sway the design, just because they have a working relationship.
I would second that. I would say let's interview 4 only, and also to reiterate that, one of the benefits of having these committees is for residents to come forward and speak their mind, make those requests of us to consider these things, and at those times that we can't consider them, should. And I think having an additional person to interview just adds to our knowledge of what's possible out there as well. I think what I learned from the rec center process is interviewing so many firms allowed us to see everyone's different approaches to needs assessments and what communities can do. So I think I would pitch for 4 interviewers, and frankly, the other one, theoretically, if someone said, hey, I want to interview that 5th one, I would, except for I would say that budget-wise was far outside.
Yeah.
2x.
Yeah.
With everyone else. So.
Yeah, the 4 are all now in the same ballpark.
They're all in the same ballpark.
Yeah. The way we did it with the rec center, if I'm recalling this correctly, was that the steering committee ran the interview process and invited any commissioners that wanted to come and ask questions. And there was some staff there too. So if we're comfortable, we can do the same thing, where really it's the committee that's running that interview process, with us helping out.
I agree with that.
Any objections to that?
That's all convey to Emily, who's the liaison to the committee, and ask her to arrange for the interviews to occur with the steering committee. We'll make sure that the board is aware of that And then this board will await a recommendation from the steering committee.
And my memory was we had a special meeting for that purpose last time. It wasn't,
January 4th.
yeah, I just don't think it was at the same time as a steering committee meeting.
Oh, it might have been. I think that ended up being the first Thursday of the month, which is
Oh.
when those meetings were.
Right, and then just because this committee runs an hour before Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
My thought is it might actually not work out that way. We'll probably need more than an hour to interview.
Yeah, I think for that, and this is smaller scope. I think we allotted 20 minutes. It was pretty well planned in that we were gonna ask the same questions of everyone, not get into the dog and pony show too much, because we already had that information. So we limited it to 20 minutes per candidate. If we're interviewing 4, we knock it down to 15. You're gonna want a little more than an hour, at minimum, I would think. But maybe the committee can decide that, pick a date that works. All right. Do you have any questions or comments on that? Good, okay. All right, anything else on that? We got a good plan here? Okay. That's good. All right, any other agenda topics people want to hear about? I checked the 3 that we talked about.
What's the next step? I know we're far along in the process, but I'm unclear
Yep.
where we're at, like what follows.
Okay, so the question was, what are just the next steps on 210 Sunnybrook? Sure.
So on Wednesday evening, the board is going to be asked to adopt a resolution. It's called an approval resolution. It'll set forth the terms of the approval, any waivers, any conditions. The next step would be for the developer to prepare the final plans for recording with Montgomery County, as well as the solicitor's office will prepare development agreements. The development agreements will lay out what their obligations are as far as the development of the property when we get to that point. They'll also need to post financial security to guarantee any of the improvements that are required of the plans. So you're still a few months away from them actually breaking ground or doing anything. But it's kind of like up to them at the speed with which that they want to do it. But my suspicion is that they'll want to get going pretty quickly, particularly with the demolition of the existing home that's there and the garage. You know, anything on that?
Approved the,
They could actually pull a demolition permit at any time for to demolish the house and the garage. My suspicion is they'll probably work to do it all in conjunction, because once you mobilize the equipment, you want to have it there on site. I missed anything, Jim?
I have one more question regarding this.
Hmm. Sorry, I made a exception, but then
Next steps.
Jason Glass, so for Sunnybrook, the property is currently owned not by the developer, correct? I don't quite understand how it works. I know that I've met the owner before, this development process has happened. I don't understand how the developer is moving forward. They may at some point take over the property. We have a partner of the property now, company by property records, that it puts them as equitable owner. So just for my understanding.
I think
Yeah, I
their
mean-
sale is contingent
On the approval.
upon the approval. So this has to, basically, Wednesday would be the trigger for,
Got
so it wouldn't be in public record. It wouldn't be part of the deed.
it. It's fine. I mean, it's like this whole time, I'm like, how is this all happening? I thought maybe they had sold. Because I contacted Chris, the previous owner, and really sold it quite recently, but, I asked him, hey, what's going on? I haven't seen you, when I was still up in the street. He said, I sold. He told me months ago. I don't understand. So it's contingent by, based on your approval.
If it's in public records, it might already be sold. He said he sold in the public.
If they have.
Yeah, but a lot of people sell they sold something, but it doesn't actually close.
No,
yet.
but he,
They sold it within the family.
Oh.
well,
Well, that might show up in the public
because
record.
you mentioned that you saw something in the public records, and that means, okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
They moved the property within the family for some.
Reason.
Yeah.
But it's just under the sales, it's not here. So we just did that.
Many times what a developer will do is purchase a property, but say, I'm not going to settlement until I have all my permits. And that may be what he's doing. He's saying, as soon as I have every single one of my permits, then I'll go to settlement with you.
Great, thank you. Right, why don't we? All right, we covered A. Can we skip you and come back, Mike? In case you take more than 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Or should we just go and then stop wherever you stop?
No, whatever you want to do, knock it out.
All right, why don't we just knock you out then? We'll start with the, who are you again? Manager. We'll start with the manager's report and we'll pause at 8 and then we'll.
You want to go through that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll try and go through pretty quick. So 2025 budget, I anticipate getting the budget to you this Friday. We have a budget meeting or a budget workshop scheduled for next Wednesday, the 16th at 7 PM. Which time you'll see the budget or talk about it for the first time. The awards dinner, please mark your calendars for the annual awards dinner. It is going to be on Wednesday, December 18th at 6:30. Flower Count Country Club. First responders.
Can you confirm, maybe just for people who haven't attended before, who all is invited to that?
Sure, it's all the paid employees, professional staff, and the advisory boards and committee members. We also invite the state rep and the state senator and the Montgomery County commissioners. Well,
Great. Who's in charge of the entertainment this year?
the guy at the end of the table,
All right,
maybe he'll partner up with somebody. Might be the last year you have to do it since there's going to be a recreation coordinator in the future. Good to delegate that.
excellent.
First Responders Appreciation Night is going to be on November 25th at the Orland Fire Company. We made that announcement before. Just wanted to get it in front of you again. Dinner is at 7 o'clock. Bulk refuse analysis. If some of the members of the board who were here in 2022 will remember that we had proposed the implementation of a bulk permit fee for disposal of things like mattresses and big heavy furniture and things of that nature. Our concern was in the wake of rising disposal fees that we were going to start seeing more and more of this stuff at the curbside that we were going to have to pick up. And we were also looking for ways to kind of control the cost of the refuse service fee. The board wasn't inclined to implement the fee as part of the 2023 budget. So we started just tracking the information so that you could have that available to you. In 2024, we elected not to do that again. We gave you the information for the quarterly bulk refuse collection. In 2023, we collected 2,842 bulk items. And if the permit fee system that we had implemented or came up with would have been implemented, we would have generated about $40,000 in permit fees for that. So it's something to keep in mind. At the time that I wrote this, I didn't know what the refuse service fee would be for 2025, but the proposed fee is going to increase modestly by $5.48 to a discounted rate of $257.56. So you might want to talk about it as part of your budget workshop, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be a significant increase that you really need to go to this.
Yeah.
One of our concerns was we were going to start seeing the import of this kind of waste from municipalities that had implemented a permit fee. So, you know. if
We're
you
not
go-
really seeing that. It's
We're
good.
not really seeing that. It's not going up.
Okay.
It's not going down significantly, or either
Yeah.
way. Those communities have done so because they have automated trash collection and you can't put a
Right.
sofa out there or a bed in that toter that they pick up with the mechanical arm. So they have to send another
Right.
crew out. So they're trying to recover that cost by a permit fee. So
It's nice that our residents have that and don't have to worry about that. That
it's
extra step,
appreciated. Mhm.
but,
Service.
but we wanted to make sure it wasn't abused and it sounds like it's not, or to a
Not
point
yet,
where.
anyway. Yep.
Yeah. So,
We'll continue to monitor it and,
so don't give anyone any ideas at a public meeting?
yeah, let's not.
Okay.
Cheltenham Avenue, you recall that you endorsed the grant application The Montgomery County submitted to the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission to study the feasibility of implementing a road diet on Cheltenham Avenue from Paper Mill Road all the way into the city of Philadelphia. We announced that that was funded in May. And I just recently learned that the RFP was issued on October 3rd to select a planner for that project. That's being run through Montgomery County and the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. The RFPs are due on November 4th. So we'll have a little bit more information at that time or shortly thereafter.
So but that is just for the study, right?
That's just the
So that may
study.
come back and say it's not even a good idea.
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Stanton Avenue, you recall that there was a tragic crash on July 29th at Stanton and Evergreen. It involved a stolen vehicle running a red light. And the occupants of that stolen vehicle, one of them, passed away. So in the wake of that, I was asked to follow up and see if PennDOT had any plans to implement any of the recommendations that they had come up with in the wake of a study that they performed back in 2023. And one of those recommendations was to change the traffic signals on Stanton Avenue from what's considered a protected permitted left turn arrangement to a protected prohibited, meaning you could only turn on the arrow. They think that'll reduce the number of angle crashes that occur when somebody tries to make a left across traffic and they can see the car maybe in the passing lane, but not in the curb lane, and they end up having a crash. So PennDOT agreed to try and fast track this. The signals are owned by the city of Philadelphia, and with all the things that they have going on, this is like very low on their priority list. But PennDOT agreed to take on the engineering for it, and then hopefully it'll get implemented whole lot quicker that way. So that's good news. The tank car property, we talked a little bit about that earlier, about the proposals that we received for the planner in that regard. So we have direction on that. I won't spend any more time on that. There's a paper shredding and e-waste event that's being sponsored by Senator Haywood and State Rep Nelson, Napoleon Nelson. That's going to be on Saturday, October 19th from 10 to 1 at the Springfield High School. So it can't get much more convenient. And everybody's got e-waste and stuff that they got to get rid of. So maybe as part of Brendan's report, we'll make that announcement this month. Integrity Avenue, Tim gave his report on that. We're in good shape there. I think Pete was alluding to a request from one of the property owners who has petitioned the Montgomery County Board of Assessments to reduce the assessed value of that rear lot, which is no longer a buildable lot because of the detention basin that we built. I don't know how much of a reduction he thinks he's going to get on it. It's not assessed very high as it is. I think he's more concerned with the school tax than he is with his local tax. But if you wanted to help him out and you wanted to authorize me to write a letter, I could do that. I don't know what good, if any, it would be, but all he really needs to do is take a picture of the detention basin that was built there and show him the agreement that says, you know, he can't do anything, and he's got a pretty good argument in and of itself.
I got no problem with that. Happy to support that.
Skyline Drive.
Just on that letter, Michael, do you know for sure that was a building lot without?
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely, because he bought it from that, you were involved with the Prestige Builders.
Okay.
Skyline Drive, we talked about that. That'll be an agenda item for you to authorize the execution of that agreement. Walnut Avenue pedestrian trail, just cleaning up a couple of loose ends on that. We owed the Sandy Run Country Club a privacy screen that's been back ordered. Public Works is going to install that this week. That's in an area where it was too narrow between the new fence and the T to put any landscaping in to recreate the buffer that used to be there. So we had to put in, we're going to have to put this screen in. And then some of the landscape plantings that we put in back in May didn't make it through the summer. So we cut a deal with them. We'll supply them at a greatly reduced rate. And they agree to take out the dead stuff and replant them. Then we'll be done. They'll be in charge. And they've been watering all through the summer. It's been a brutal summer. The Building Code Board of Appeals, a little update there. The school district had originally requested a variance to the International Building and Plumbing Code requirements for some restroom renovations that they were planning at the middle school. They've decided to amend their plans, and they're still gonna have that same design, but they're gonna designate them for male and female. And then in the future, if the code ever changes and they're able to designate them unisex, they'll do so. But as of right now,
Okay.
they're gonna withdraw that appeal.
Do you have any sense of when that new code, the updated code is adopted?
No. in
Is that,
fact,
is that at the state level?
It's state level, but
Okay.
we automatically get updated when the state,
Yeah.
that was the whole purpose of the UCC. Before the UCC, we all, like White Marsh had a code, we had a
Yeah.
code, Cheltenham had a code, and it drove the Home Builders Association in particular nuts. So they lobbied the state legislature to adopt a uniform code. So whenever the state adopts it, we go. There's some outliers, like the city of Philadelphia has their own, but by and large, most of the people,
Okay.
most of the municipalities have the state code. But to your point, oftentimes they'll jump a code, so they may not adopt the 2021 code and may go right to, say, the 2024 code. And the 2024 code may not allow
Mhm.
whatever was proposed in the 2021 code. So, but, let's just do that. Highway laborer, we made 2 conditional offers of employment due to the retirements of 2 individuals earlier this year. We deferred the hiring of 2 replacements, partly because there was some extended vacation time that the 2 retired individuals took. We were negotiating a new contract with a new starting salary for those individuals. And we were able to supplement through the summer with seasonal college kids. It seemed to fit the bill pretty well. They were coming in and saved us a little bit of money as well. Mark Panicow is our planning and zoning officer. He's been out on an extended medical leave following some pretty significant surgery. He initially thought he was going to be coming back on the 21st of October, but he just recently saw his cardiologist, and he's recommending that he remain out of work through November 2nd at this time. He's going to get another appointment at that time. So wish he was coming back a little bit sooner, but we made some arrangements with Keystone Municipal Services to do the zoning reviews while he's out. And Chuck Bailey's been pitching in, and Craig and I have been pitching in as well, so.
So if someone has a code complaint or issue that requires someone to go take a look at something, how's that being divvied up?
So if it's a zoning, Mark's actually been monitoring his emails from afar, so he'll refer them either to myself or to Chuck to follow up, depending upon what it is. If it's a zoning matter, I'm generally following up on it with either Rich O'Brien from Keystone, or Chuck will go out, put some eyes on it and let me know what he sees. Chuck served in that capacity over in Ambler before he came to Springfield, so he's familiar with it as well. And then just an update on the Little League from the Park and Rec meeting last month, or actually last week. That's it.
Good timing. Good job. I assume we don't have our second gentleman here yet. He's scheduled for 8:15. So why don't we jump in with Jim? You ready to go?
Wherever you're comfortable.
Yeah.
All right. So if you just want to make a quick intro and then we'll just go down the line. If anyone has questions.
You want to announce this is for the alternate?
Yeah, it's we're interviewing 2 candidates tonight who applied for the open position of alternate member for the zoning hearing board.
Maybe outside of the cold, maybe or not. Maybe also. Spoke the application. The alternate position, that's actually where I started in alternate, the zoning hearing board. Back. 2005. Or something like that. I was alternate for zoning board, they were, so, and like the commissioner, my decision to be the liaison, and zoning board. 12 years as commissioner. I've enjoyed it. I love the integrity program of the code, and be able to solve any of these hot zoning topics. That's a long way, right? An interesting one. But as far as professional background, I've been counsel at state police for
for about 12 years, kind of about 10 years now, back with the state police again. But during my time at PennDOT, I got to be familiar with them, the outcome well, to the main procedures, visit the highest section of the property, and training that we did. I believe I have more knowledge now with that. The zoning hearing board here has always been great, always professional, I think they do the right thing. It makes all proud, I hate to see negative news, negative is real, really. I don't know why she's not doing it.
She got a promotion. Yeah. Yeah, Superior Court, and then apparently there was a conflict. She had to conflict out, had to resign.
Yeah, I choose by many good people before being quickly, when I was going, so I was ready to chair. Just want to come back to the service in some capacity. Yeah, have any questions, of anybody here? Familiar with, my background. Any questions?
Great. Ed, you want to start?
No, nice to see you again. Clearly you have experience, background, and requisite knowledge, so. Yeah.
Nice to see you again. I had to, obviously echoing his sentiments, thank you for raising your hand to serve. Clearly you have all of the requisite knowledge and background. So I had to struggle to come up with a good question, but I always have a question. My question is, what are the unique aspects of the zoning hearing board? And what did you seek out in members when you were given the opportunity potentially to select a member? What are the unique aspects of serving on the zoning hearing board? And what did you seek out in those that you wish to assign to the zoning hearing board when you had those opportunities as commissioner in our city?
I think it overall, but you don't need to really avoid. You should be familiar with those, and do some type of administrative issue. When I was, when we moved in, someone, one, Jen Jen came from Township, but she's running the office with it.
Right.
She had a vast amount of experience and whatnot. And gentleman from he was an architect, but he wasn't good up to the lawyer or anything like that. I didn't know. I just think he looked familiar with the township. Fairness in the sense of like the difference between, give us an error between a 4-foot barrier because you can't, meet the 35-foot aggregate for the zoning as opposed to a home. We look for 4 houses on the property or something like that. So we try to look for fairness, common sense. A lot of things that we come up with, we both have like the food side and all. Corner. We would try to balance, look for, I was on there and looking for some, how you balance it. Basically, they've always had lunch. We would try to, just, I think when I was on it, trying to make sure folks reach out to the neighbors, which one there, just in coming, I always like reaching out to the neighbors first. What it was better and trying to work some of that out. What you got here, and again, they to make it. And sometimes the answer's under no. But we try to folks through it, but you might want to try it this way and come back. As opposed to just a one day.
I have no questions for you. I had the pleasure of serving with you for many years as a co-commissioner and as your time as president of the board. So, it would be a wonderful thing, I think, if you came back and worked for the zoning with us. So.
Mike?
So when you were on the zoning hearing board, I think it was the 3rd Monday of every month. They moved it to the 4th Monday of every month. Can you make the meeting? How about the time? 7 o'clock?
The now my children.
Yeah.
And the rule was, that the children ate in bed before we went to meet.
Right.
They're all grown now. They better be.
You're not bathing them still, are you?
No.
That's when they were little.
Great. At our September business meeting, you urged the board to take a formal vote on a matter that was not on the agenda. nor advertised as such to the public. As part of the zoning hearing board, is there any instance in which you would support that board taking formal action on matters that did not have public notice?
You have to, you have to land on. You have to, with a board of commissioners, I mean, somebody, in your speech at the beginning, all says, I read the 1,000 times, you actually will take place in the event, you know, make a public comment, but you know that you have to speak on that and invite. So the zoning board formal project commission process, but it has to be made midnight. Going to various presidents or city chair of the zoning board, or the game clerk was, I thought, the old student, not, good. But there would be sometimes someone would appear with an item that wasn't on the agenda, but we're not germane to the actual. A lot of times, it's just the way development is, no leader come, and break it. Again, I think you professionally, you get us through that, and I think the word is not relevant to those issues. But it's different items. I mean, you're taking official action on things, but there's people comment.
Okay, thank you. John,
No, which item is that?
what's that?
Because I think it's,
For the land use agreement renewal.
okay. Okay. I thought you commented. Okay. No, just echoing Pete's sentiment. I just think with your experience and you know, not only as commissioner, but certainly on the zoning board, I think would be a great asset. Good institutional knowledge in the township, so strongly supported. What? I really listening to you. Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Chair, I think I was just gonna ask, when you became the alternate back in 2004, what prompted your involvement at that point in time?
Just want to get involved in the township, different areas, that time I was young, just getting involved in my community. You know, we'd see different zoning things that went on in the area that we, I would send many on different subject ways, they could get the fence up to the higher fence or not. I mean, you'd always see, I'll go back and you'd always see, neon colored, advertisements on the telephone pole, those are the zoning issues in the neighborhood. But, you know, I was a coach little league, soccer, basketball, baseball, involved with different, surgery, different from certified teams. So I thought it would be my professional knowledge that.
Jeff, you had mentioned that there were some hot projects while we were during your time on the board. So I was just curious. I've learned how to take those hot topics and try to learn from them, opportunities for growth. So I'm just curious if there was anything that you learned from those difficult conversations or difficult agenda items.
Not that you're not transparent, as much as you can get the public involved, and you all. We didn't know. We didn't know about that. And there could be 5, 6, you could never have enough public position. Now it's social media, which before wasn't, now you feel that's the easiest way to get told somebody. I would say, whenever something's on the horizon, that you feel like, oh, I don't know, zones you really do it, but commissioners could do it. It's to be transparent as everything is possible. And you may not answer, or people may not wait for you to answer, but you say, if you're doing an answer, if you've done it, so you can call one thing, you can text it on the bank card, and some of the folks in the back of the room, you know, what's going on, and we eventually took that property. You just have to have, as long as you know, but you can't have enough meetings, you can't have enough outreach to folks to know what's going on. And I so commend you guys the way you do public comment. You just let, we're out of lawn, but you let everybody have their say, like, sometimes you have to separate like anything. So that's just the best way to, you know, if it's something time, come in and it's time like come here. Something just got to run this all the time. I know when it's 400 people, you might have to know what to do.
The rest of the, I think it's good, only for the, I'd like to go back to the zoning we have, we mail, everybody 500 feet within.
500 feet on the street, 150 feet not on the
Sometimes
street.
that, even though that's enough, I still go back to the neon thing on telephone pole, I think everything people, and I remember Rob did that, started putting them back in different areas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Greg, do you have anything?
Yeah, I don't think. so.
No, he's good? Okay. All right, great. Thank you, Jim.
Nothing I can say is like, more of my fellow commissioners that are from different, areas, but I think very well started, there's one in the, civil service.
Yep.
And they're going to plan, definitely plan, and they're going to store that. This is my second, I would say, formal request that I invited you. It was a third, but maybe Jeff did you go on. That was pretty much done, right, Pete?
Yeah.
That was not a unanimous vote, if you recall.
I thought you, and you deserve that, I would definitely.
Yeah.
I would actually consider it, not the way that you time.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all.
Are you Michael? Are you ready to start 5 minutes early?
Sure.
Okay, great.
Comments.
Yes, thank you. It is cold here, by the way.
Sure, whatever you want. That one's warm, that one's probably cold. Great. Thank you, Michael, for coming. So pretty informal, you just got to see a little bit of it. If you want to just make a quick intro to yourself, then we'll go down the line. Commissioners have any questions? And,
Good evening, thanks for giving me the opportunity to come and meet you all tonight. My family and I have moved to the Springfield Township back in 2022, so we're, of course, I'm new to the area. We're pretty excited and happy that we landed here. We looked at a fair bit of housing, and you can imagine in 2022, it was a difficult time to buy a place. But we think we ultimately lucked out by funding. I have been involved in the community from off and on over the years. I lived in the Lindale neighborhood in South Minneapolis in Minnesota for about 20 years, and have been involved in neighborhood association and their housing committee off and on while I was there. And my previous job before I became an attorney, I did a lot of advocacy work on affordable housing issues. So wanting to get more involved in the community here, I thought this would be an opportunity. So I decided to submit my information, and then Michael, the township manager, called me back and said, well, it looks like you can make it. There's a meeting next week on Monday, if you can make it. And I said, certainly. I've got two young kids, and a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old. I assure you that won't get in the way of me being able to attend meetings though, at 7 o'clock.
Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's why we have alternates, right?
and they do, they're enjoying the school district and settling. So, that's just a little bit about me. I am an attorney, in private practice. I do mostly estate planning and bankruptcy. Kind of as a hobby, if you will. I have done quite a bit of, housing work as well. I am a landlord, and that I own 2 rental properties still back in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So a decent amount of experience, not through lawyering, if you will, but through kind of, I guess, interest in housing and zoning, and how that really impacts the community. And to piggyback on what Jim was saying, it is incredibly important that the community needs to be involved and understand what's going on with zoning. And you feel like it's being applied equally, that it's, so I think transparency, openness, fairness, making sure that people understand that it isn't some arbitrary variance that's being granted in that particular case. There is an open and fair process that you can explain to someone that might want to do something on their property. Well, the zoning code exists. It is applied fairly and, uniformly across the township, and here's why it exists. And, as far as a variance that we might be able to grant, here's what we can grant, and here's why we can't. And so I think it's important to, one, make sure people understand as much as they can. I mean, you're always going to end up with people that are going to choose to not want to understand or just aren't going to necessarily grasp why that rule exists. But I think at the end of the day, if they can understand that the rule is going to apply equally, fairly, equitably, I think that, that's a success. Even if an individual might not appreciate why they're being pulled, they might not be able to do something.
Great. Ed, you want to start?
And we're neighbors, I live on, Windward, I'm 710, so right across the street from Windward. And, as a newer, member of the community, what do you think you've enjoyed the most? And what do you think, the challenge, as part of the legal course?
So what I've enjoyed the most is, honestly getting to know a number of my neighbors, and some of the folks in the area. Contrary to what, so we moved here from the Midwest. My wife is originally from the oil patterns, so we did have a relationship and an experience with the area. But, the East Coast gets a rap for not being, for being a little bit maybe mean and
Unwelcoming?
direct. But I have found people to be generally receptive and open to welcome them. And that's been wonderful. And it's, I think, really helped my kids be able to connect with a number of individuals and to make some friends. Because, moving can always be difficult, but we decided it was easier to do it when they were younger. And so that's probably been the thing that I've enjoyed the most is getting to know our neighbors and seeing our kids really develop some relationships and friendships that I hope will be lifelong friendships for them. Challenging, like I said, I'm an attorney in private practice, and so learning how the law works in Pennsylvania and translating that, of course, many years of experience practicing law in Minnesota. But as much as, this is the same country, and there's a lot of uniformity between the two systems, there are a number of nuances and differences. And so learning how it kind of works here, certainly I would say has been probably one of my favorite challenges. Kind of really learning to understand that there is definitely more than one way you can do something. That just because it's done this way doesn't mean that's the only way to do it. And learning and appreciating that it's done this way in this particular instance, and then really trying to figure out and appreciate why it's done that way, and understand.
And last quick follow-up question, David, maybe from Minneapolis, I need a David first.
Purple, right? I mean, that is,
Big wrong.
that is,
I'll accept it.
I sense a disagreement. Thank you for raising your hand to serve. Delighted to see your name. Actually, Mike's kid and my son went to school together. And it was they were in kindergarten together. So delighted to see you here and to hear that you raised your hand here. I would ask a follow-up question to maybe some of these challenges you've seen. Maybe describe a situation where you may disagree with a rule or regulation, but had to follow it nonetheless. You describe the situation and what you did to follow up on such a disagreement.
I mean, certainly practicing law, I mean, we encounter those, with the client. So I do estate planning and bankruptcy, and many times when I meet with a new client and I'll kind of walk through their situation, and we'll come to a situation where as much as everyone wants to believe the law is black and white, I'm sure you all appreciate and understand the law is not black and white. It's often incredibly blue. But most people want to think, well, just tell me the answer. Tell me what is the answer. Sometimes you just can't do that. And so there have been a few times where I did kind of go into the client and say, I don't know exactly. I mean, this is what the rule is, and this is how this is going to apply in a particular situation. We don't necessarily You don't have, I don't like it, we can certainly fight it, we can certainly try and change it. But trying to work through that situation where they start off being particularly frustrated and upset about it, and really helping them work through that, and maybe helping them understand, again, to the degree you can help them understand why the rule exists or why the rule works that way, and then helping them understand how it might apply to their specific situation, and then helping them try and, as best you can, navigate through it. Again, I bring up the law being gray. Sometimes we don't know exactly how a rule is going to apply, and so I can think of a few situations without getting into specific details where I had to sit down with someone and say, I don't know exactly how this particular interpretation of this statute or this rule is going to apply. And that I can't make the decision for you as to whether, how you want to act here. You have to make that decision. They make the decision, and then you have to live with the consequences. And so that kind of gets back to your question of how do you do with someone you disagree with? I can tell someone I disagree with. I can explain to them and outline why I disagree with it, but then at the end of the day, the judge didn't agree with it. The appellate court didn't agree with it. And ultimately, we appealed that particular case to the Minnesota Supreme Court. They also didn't agree with it. It is what it is. We fought as much as we could, and made sure that the client, they were involved and understood kind of throughout the entire process. Frustrating, but we did our best to, we worked hard to make sure we were communicating and we were being as clear as we could throughout the entire process. And, at the end of the day, we came up short, but that happens sometimes. But while we can't control what that third party decision maker is going to do in that particular case, or by analogy, if I'm on the, if I'm an alternate or I'm happen to be serving on, actively on the zoning board, I'm not going to be writing the code. And I'm going to understand that. And so, it's not my job it would be my job to make sure that that code is being applied accurately, correctly, uniformly, fairly, equitably. And I would imagine, when it makes sense, when there are reasonable opportunities to weigh in on something, in the right form, in the right way, that would be the opportunity to weigh in. If I'm doing something and I say, this doesn't quite seem right, to me, it wouldn't seem correct for me to espouse that opinion to the community necessarily, because then I had taken on the hat of trying to be the unbiased arbiter, trying to apply the zoning code, and now I'm weighing in on that opinion about what I think about the zoning code. It would seem like that would be the wrong form to do that, but I would imagine there would be an opportunity in a different forum where perhaps weighing in on the zoning code to say, well, I didn't like this rule, the way this rule applied here or worked here, it didn't seem correct. We applied it correctly, we worked through that difficult situation, but, maybe here's what I've seen, or here's some feedback, maybe we can tweak that.
Thank you.
Peter?
Well, first of all, Michael, thanks for coming in. Thanks for your willingness to serve. Some in the media and some political politicians believe we have a serious housing crisis. How do you, and I see that you've done a fair amount of work with housing background. How do you see zoning helping or hindering our perceived housing crisis?
I think zoning plays an incredibly powerful role in the housing that exists in the streetscape. In whether or not we have mixed use development, whether, height, density, how much green space we can have, how wide are streets. And I think one other thing that exists here more so than I would say, so one thing that seems to exist more here is we also, and so there's that complicating factor in that. But I think zoning plays an incredible role. One of the things that I was involved with in Minneapolis said, we have an acute housing problem. We have an affordable housing crisis. And they committed a study, to really try and dig into and figure out what are some things that we can maybe do, to address the housing. And, first and foremost, they acknowledge that what may work in Minneapolis might not work in, a neighboring suburb. So what might work in Springfield Township might not be appropriate for Justin Hill in Philadelphia, or what might work in Wetmark might not be what's appropriate here. But one thing that zoning, like it can setback, for example, or lot size, density on a lot, like you could ask kind of, how can you address the housing issue? One thing, maybe an ADU ordinance is something. I don't know if you guys have looked at that in the past, an accessory dwelling unit ordinance, where you might be allowed to convert space above a garage, provided the garage meets certain minimum standards. You add a housing unit above. There's one kitty corner from where I live. They happen to have a garage. It's a gray house in the corner. That happened to have an apartment above the garage. And my understanding, it's been there for a number of years. But
He's down in the mountain. Can we check it out?
It was probably an old carriage house up there in that
Yeah.
neighborhood.
yeah, I don't know, that might be one way where, because we're fairly built up, established community. It's not like all of a sudden
Yep.
we've got a bunch of green space.
Right.
So, well, what, we want to develop this field, we want to build new housing. I mean, that might be something that might deal with, a small sliver.
Okay.
Sometimes, other things, this is a little less zoning, but more, you could adopt an ordinance if you have to look into, land trust. Where you develop a system where, the owner of the dirt sells the dirt to a nonprofit entity or to a public entity. Receive the subsidy, and then, the housing unit becomes a permanently affordable housing unit, whereby when that housing unit changes hands, say the housing unit is worth $200,000, which here would be a part.
Right.
Say it's worth $200,000, and it appreciates to $400,000. Well, if you were to separate the value of the dirt away from the building, maybe the building now is only worth 150, and the dirt's worth 50. So you'd instantly make the housing unit more affordable without sacrificing quality, without sacrificing, the amenities that we want in our community.
Because you're not buying the dirt.
Yeah, now the homeowner's not buying the dirt.
Right.
They're responsible, they got a 99-year ground lease, it's renewable. Then when they turn around and sell that building, they're not needing to sell the dirt, they're selling the building, and instead of them being able to capture 100% of the depreciation, they're maybe capturing 80% of the depreciation, 75% or 90%, some formula, so that the housing unit is then rendered more affordable over time. And then when the subsequent buyer buys it, it's a more affordable housing. That's something that with some creativity could potentially work. So that's just, I guess, another small example of something that, but without, really tinkering with, setbacks or density another one is, you could say, in this particular area, I know Minneapolis looked into it and said, we're going to change our zoning code. And now if you own or occupy a housing unit, doesn't matter where you are in the city, every lot automatically can accommodate up to 3 houses. Has to make sense, has to fit with the zoning code, has to fit with the streetscape. But in theory, you could build up to 3 housing units on a particular. So there are a lot of things you could do without, again, sacrificing.
Any questions, Mike?
Real quick, so there's one vacancy on this particular board. Are there any other advisory boards or committees that interest you if this one wasn't available to you?
I know I saw housing and historical preservation. I don't know if there were vacancies, I just noted that there was this vacancy. But certainly, I mean, we're not planning on moving anytime soon, so I can certainly respect, I understand you guys have a number of other relationships with previous commissioner and so if this opportunity ends up not working out, I'm sure there'll be another opportunity that I'll.
Yeah, I asked because as they come up, I'll direct notify
Yeah.
people who, if they have an interest in something. You may say, oh, God, no park and recreation, I don't want that. And I wouldn't bother you with that one, but if you're like, oh, library, I want to be on the library committee, give you a heads up about that. No,
Okay, great.
Hey, no knocking on Parks and Rec.
no, they have long meetings though, like that.
My question was gonna be similar to Peter's, so I'll pass just for time's sake, so we have time for everybody. But being from Minnesota, are you fielding Tim Wall's questions from people? Curious about him, kind of, sort of? No? Okay.
He'll pass.
John?
After the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got two softballs and you kind of alluded to one. How did you end up on the East Coast? Was it just proximity to your wife's family or?
Yeah, I think it was the pandemic and just my wife wanted to change.
But you're born and raised in Minnesota?
In the Midwest.
In the Midwest?
Yeah, actually born in Michigan,
Okay,
Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Technically, that makes me a Uber, I suppose.
yep,
And then moved to the Des Moines, Iowa. Spent my childhood there, then moved to the Twin Cities in high school.
cold weather does not bother you.
No, in fact, when people say it gets colder, I say.
Yeah, you don't know cold.
When?
Wait.
Yeah. And good working knowledge of Italian.
It's rusty.
Rusty, just from travel, from,
So back in high school, I was an exchange student in Italy,
okay,
back in the early nineties.
so very rusty. Yeah, but good working knowledge, okay. And
There are a lot more Italians here than Minnesota.
yeah, yeah. And I guess the one thing that has always struck me about the zoning hearing board is its quasi kind of judicial nature. And so particularly from the standpoint of residents and neighbors coming into it, they're often kind of like overwhelmed, like, oh, wow, I didn't realize it was this serious, this formal. And it can be very intimidating. Would you view your role more to put them at ease or more in sort of representing, as you sort of said, sort of the neutrality of the law itself and just sort of maintaining that kind of maybe better, but let me strike that. Let me ask a better question. How is your personality suited for that kind of a forum? And would you kind of, how would you handle that?
Great question. I would just toss out a few examples. So when I'm interacting with judges, there's different kinds of judges. Some judges are there's a distance between you and them. Oftentimes, judges sit high up. So some judges make you aware that they are the decision maker, that they're there. They're the decision makers. Their court, their rules, and they sit higher up than you, and they make you understand. And then there are judges that try to lessen that. They don't want to diminish their office. They don't want to treat the role they have as great. But they understand that while they have a full obligation to make sure that they are acting faithfully to the oath they took as a judge, that they are applying the law equally, that they are doing their best to make sure that they're making good decisions when they're called to make decisions. They don't need to do it in such a way that creates distance. And to the extent that someone who comes into a meeting like that, it is quasi-judicial. You have to make sure that people understand that decisions need to be made, and sometimes they're going to be difficult decisions. And they may not agree with the decision, but you don't need to necessarily create a ton of distance between you and them. There's nothing wrong with where it's appropriate, when it's appropriate, how it's appropriate, helping someone understand the process, helping them understand and guide them through that where, as much as you can, to help them understand why you may be making it. Rather than just trying to create more distance, I guess, between. And so I would try and inject that as much as possible where it made sense. Because ultimately that neighbor is a neighbor. I mean, there are people that live in the community and helping them understand that their government is working for them and that their government is accessible and understandable and relatable. But at the same time is applying the law fairly, equitably, and equally. I think it's incredibly important. And being approachable and helping them buy into that and understand that. Doesn't mean they're going to necessarily agree with the decision. But I think at the end of the day, even someone who doesn't want to agree with the decision, there's always going to be that 5% that is never going to agree. And you're never going to get them to really, they're never going to be. It seems like there's always 5%. But the other folks, to the extent that they can walk away saying, I didn't get the variance, or I didn't get the decision I thought I would get or I wanted. But I do feel like the process was fair, it was open, and I understood what was going on. And I was treated, I was given the respect and courtesy I would do as the individual applying for the variance, seeking the variance.
Great. Yeah. Oh, we got two more. I don't want to cut you short, but I don't want
Yeah.
to make sure both interviews are kind of in the same ballpark too. So Brendan.
My question was, you were involved in the development of the comprehensive plan in Minneapolis. And I was wondering if there are any key elements to that plan that you think also are relevant to the community that we have here.
You can definitely say no, no.
I would say, I mean, Minneapolis is a large state. And a lot of the issues they're grappling with and dealing with, it would seem difficult for Springfield unto itself to deal with those issues. But to the extent that Springfield coordinates and has conversations with surrounding jurisdictions, and if there ever were a discussion about, hey, we want to get together as a group of 15 municipalities in suburban Montgomery County, and we want to develop a plan for how to deal with these infrastructure issues or these zoning issues or these issues. Yeah, I think coordinating. So in that regard, so Minnesota, it's an interesting fact. Every 10 years, in theory, every municipality in Minnesota adopts a new comprehensive plan that deals with its zoning and deals with its land, in theory, every 10 years. And so that was what Minneapolis was doing, as well as a bunch of other suburban communities in the metro area. So I was involved with mostly Minneapolis because I lived there. But I mean, that would be my answer to that.
You actually already answered my question. Mine was similar to the one that John answered, so thank you for that. And I just wanted to reiterate our gratitude for your willingness to serve and staying open to this opportunity and other opportunities that come along. So thanks for that.
Great. Greg,
What is that? What is that?
Yeah.
were you excited when the,
Stop.
What's bad?
Ciao, bene.
were you excited when the Eagles won the Super Bowl in Minnesota?
You don't have to answer that.
You can also say no.
Are you a team fan? You have a team?
Believe it or not, Green Bay Packers.
Okay.
Please don't believe it.
Wait, so you lived in Michigan and Minnesota, but not Wisconsin?
High school in Husky, Wisconsin,
Okay.
which is part of the Twin Cities, which is
Oh, really?
just far enough into Wisconsin.
Really?
That,
You took it to Green Bay. Okay. All right. Could be worse.
I'm a Chatterhead when you go to high school.
Yeah.
By
We
the
call them
way,
Chatterhead.
I heard someone say something about Iowa that someone over here whispered, wow, like it was so unbelievable.
Yeah.
Iowa, what is that?
They drive on the left side of the road
That
out
might have
there.
been me,
Yeah.
who hasn't left Springfield Township in his life.
What is
Cool.
this place?
Is this heaven?
Yeah.
I have been to Dyersville. That's near where all that ball was.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, someone will be in touch in the next day or so.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming, Michael.
Mike, nice
Yeah.
meeting you.
Thanks
All
for
right.
your time.
Nice meeting you, yeah.
Good night.
We have an empty room. How's our Zoom count?
4.
4.
Jane logged on.
Okay. Did she?
She's a woman over.
Wow.
Her words.
How about that?
It was Jane.
Okay.
Okay, great. All right, Mike, you did a good job. You got right down your report, so we can go right through the rest of the agenda. Any questions or comments on the bill listing, tab C? Okay. D is the budget schedule, which I think we talked about a little bit, but our budget presentation, November 13th. Mike, you're expecting to get us the books by the end of this week, I believe?
Yep.
Hope to. And then we have our budget hearing and adoption on December the 11th. Okay, E is professional fees. So we talked about this last month. There's details in your book about slight increase requests for our zoning board solicitor, our township solicitor, and our township engineer. It's kind of the same information. Do you want to talk about it, Mike?
Yeah,
Or
no,
just
you
summarize
asked
it?
me
Step
to
out.
follow up
No.
on the, I'm
Do you
sorry.
want me to
No,
take a walk?
No.
you had asked me to follow up with a survey.
Nice
to,
try.
Some of our neighboring communities to see where, the proposed rates would fall in line with what other communities are paying. Pleased to report that the proposed rates would still be in line with what people are paying today. And in some cases are lower than what people are paying today in our neighboring communities. So, that information's, in the back of your, agenda there. And, I gave you Cheltenham's information this evening. They're slightly lower on the solicitor's rate, but they are higher, much higher, actually, on the engineer's rate, which is actually their planner, because they have an in-house engineer.
Good.
That's Cheltenham?
Cheltenham,
Cheltenham's my office too.
I know,
I'll talk to you
but not
tomorrow.
you.
Mhm. So for the actual numbers, the zoning board would go from 150 per hour to 165.
Correct.
The township solicitor would go from 175 to 185 for general municipal work and 190 to 200 for litigation work. And then the township engineer, not as easily defined, but basically average of 5.3% combined increase across all positions, with most being $5 per hour. And I think that one was not increased at all since Tim's firm started in 2019.
Yeah, so I will just make a distinction that the solicitor's proposed increase is from 180 to 185. I think you said,
Okay, yeah.
For regular.
for regular work.
Yep, you're right. Sorry, I misstated that. 180 to 185. And then 190 to 200 for the litigation.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone have any comments, questions, concerns? It all seems in line. We're still sort of towards the bottom of
Yep.
comparable.
And quick question. And earmuffs? No, I'm joking. No, I forget if I dream this, because I do occasionally will have a dream about our solicitor.
Who doesn't?
Whoa. Are,
I thought you were there.
are you gonna continue to be a solicitor, or you think
Nothing's gonna change.
nothing will change, transition?
At least for 2025, I plan to, nothing to change.
Okay.
After that, my wife may.
That's what it was, yeah,
Yeah.
it was your wife in my ears, like.
Oh, is that what it
Come
was?
home,
Is
Jim.
that who you were
Come
dreaming
home,
about?
Come home.
Yeah,
You gonna stand for that, Jim?
I'm sorry.
You gonna stand for him dreaming about
No,
your
that's
wife?
okay.
Um,
No, I plan, I mean, in terms of my plans, I plan.
Yeah.
Pretty much the same thing unless I'm told from my office, including me, is not cutting it. Then we'll do what we have to do.
I have a question, maybe out of ignorance, are there graduated rate schedules for any of these type of roles and other spaces so that it's not waiting for, vendors come to us and ask us when to make those shifts? Does that happen? Is that a thing that happens anywhere? Does anyone know what I'm talking about?
I think as you found through the survey, most of the professionals know where the market is. And, Jim's rate to a developer off the street is far higher than it is to a municipal client like ourselves. So, they know how to price themselves so that they're competitive. And, Cheltenham Township has traditionally had an in-house engineer, that's kind of like a department head. So like that's one way to control those costs, I guess you could say, by like bringing it in-house as an employee, but we couldn't afford to have an attorney that specializes in everything, that could help us out. You'd still be farming it out and needing, that kind of assistance. So.
That's what corporations do. I mean, corporations have in-house counsel and basically all they do is hire other lawyers.
Yeah.
Or not all they do, but a lot of what they do is hire other lawyers.
Yeah, Delaware Valley trusts
Yeah.
have a general counsel and then they farm out the claims people and litigation people.
Yeah.
But you need somebody to interpret it in those bigger, places.
All the big corporations I represent have lawyers.
Yeah, I
But
guess I was
they
just
call
wondering
me.
if there's a regularly scheduled time every year, what have you, to discuss, and what have we done in the past, and what do other folks do?
Generally, it's every other year, but if you read into my memo, Jim didn't raise rates from 2017 through 2022, kind of held them where they were. Tim has
So-
held his rates since he was appointed in 2019.
Everyone's at will too. They serve at our pleasure, so.
And that's
So
my-
you,
My one thing is just that, and I don't think that it's, if we, adopt all three of them, it's gonna balloon to be too much of a big pill to swallow, but it would be nice if we staggered, instead of doing it all in 1 year, if they were a little bit more spread
I
out.
think
But
that's similarly where I was getting at, is can we plan this a little bit so we can have just some better planning for these spikes, if you will, that, but to your point, it's not so dramatic as people do it, but.
Yeah, the increases generally, if they're going to come at all, generally are on that off year when you don't do the reappointments or you organize.
I understand what John's saying, though. I mean, if it would help, I mean, I can push mine one more year because I really do think Tim and Kate are a little low. I mean, just my opinion, they're both pretty good.
Oh, they're great.
I mean, I don't necessarily see a big need to wait because all three of our positions have at time not requested it for several years,
Oh, yeah.
which is why we're really on the low scale and we're still going to be on the low scale. So.
I think Jim's saying that if it helps for every other year, he'd hold his this year.
Oh,
Yeah, I
ask
understand.
for
But
something next year, then he's
Yeah.
on an alternating schedule with the other two. So.
And the only other thing that I was thinking about is because of our physical size as being relatively small from a engineering firm perspective, I mean, compare us with like some other municipalities that are much larger and have bigger projects and bigger. Yeah, I would think that we're relatively easy and kind of,
Yeah, and looking at Tim's other municipal clients, I guess Lower Providence, we would probably consider to be their largest. He's got Lower Moreland, Plymouth, Springfield,
It's
Skippack.
It's not though, it's not easier and harder work. It's different work. I mean, Springfield has a water problem, has always had a stormwater problem. And sometimes the solutions are difficult. Whereas, in Lower Moreland or wherever, he may have a 35 lot subdivision.
Right.
And that's a totally different animal than trying to fix this flooding of people's basements or whatever.
On land we don't own.
On land we don't own. But it's not an uncommon problem. All the fringe municipalities around Philadelphia have the same problem.
Another way to structure gyms, sort of as a hybrid of what you suggest, or instead of staggering it, do it now, but stagger it as if you did it next year. So that you're not, so instead of 2 years saying, here's the next typical increase, it wouldn't be for 3 years. You can at least get that benefit to being where you should be now versus waiting a year. Does that make sense?
Yeah, except it's 2 years now, right?
Well, it's nothing now.
Generally, the requests for an increase have occurred every other year.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
that's my kind of rule to myself.
yeah. It's pretty consistent, with how.
And to be clear, I don't see a problem. It seems like we're still on the lower end of everything seems fine. I just want to ask the questions so that people understand process and processes that are available.
I would rather, if it's okay, I would rather have it every 2 years instead of 3, because if it's 3, then you might be looking at a bigger jump, and people will go, geez, that's not.
That's what I'm
too
saying, do
much.
it now, but get on the schedule for as if you did it next year.
Oh, I see what you're
You know
saying.
what I'm saying?
Sure.
Because if you don't do it now, then you did have another 3 years of zero increase versus do it now, but consider it next year's increase and then 2 years from that point,
When would it be effective in your mind?
January 25.
Okay. Which is what,
Right, and then it'll be the next, so the next one's, well, yeah, but he's saying 27, right?
I'm saying
Would it be
enact it now, so it's
27, right?
effective January 25th.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
you
yeah, yeah.
offered not
No,
to
I'm
raise it
I'm
for
not
the year.
electing, I'm not suggesting anything now. I mean, this letter doesn't say
Yeah,
now.
but
This
we're-
letter
we're-
means in the budget.
Right, what we're saying is enact a change for January 25.
Right.
But as you offered to put it off a year, I'm saying don't put it off a year, but put off the next raise as if you did put it off a year. So the next request would be effective January 28.
Okay, and I just said that's the scenario I would like to try to avoid, because then it's a 3-year thing, and then I'm looking for, or then the
Makeup.
firm is looking for,
Right, but I'm
Bigger
giving
number.
you that, not me, I'm saying, but get the rate increase now for this next year. So it's actually helping you a little bit.
I'll do,
yeah, it's front loading it.
Yeah, it's just front loading.
What you're trying to say.
okay, I mean, I'll do whatever the board wants me to do.
Okay.
But I do think, Kate and Tim are pretty good. I mean, I go around in every township in the county, and I know who's good and who isn't. And
Are you good?
I'm pretty good.
All right,
Been doing it a
We'll ask Tim.
long time.
We'll ask Tim.
okay.
Yeah, ask Tim.
I'll tell you, it's great in my dreams.
That's not good.
All right, well, why don't you guys confirm that last point,
You guys-
and then it's,
Whatever.
so this is a budget thing. We're not voting on anything
You would
Wednesday on this.
authorize-
This is part of the budget
Well,
request.
you would authorize it on Wednesday night, you would authorize it to be effective with the January 1, 2025.
Okay, but that would be,
And it would be.
it would be in the, it would be in the budget that we're voting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. All right.
Just
All right.
clarify.
All right, let's go to F. Township Auditor Engagement Letter. This is just to engage them, re-engage them.
Yep.
You mentioned the cheaper, it's cheaper this year than last year. However, there was the line item of the 4,800, which kind of bumped it back up. Was that not broken out in previous years? Is that a new
This is a
structure
new,
requirement?
requirement. Last year, and as I went back and looked at last year's audit engagement letter, there was a supplemental on that one as well for GASB 96, which had to do with software subscription licenses and renewals and those kinds of things. And that was estimated to be between 500 and 1,000 additional. So when you combine them all together, they're kind of right in there at the same
Okay.
spot.
So this compiling the pension activity, is that a new activity that's required?
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
But we haven't really gotten into it. We may be able to offset that cost pretty substantially, with Craig being here
Okay.
and focused on that stuff.
Okay.
So that, she'll build that as needed, and
So it may come in lower than
May
it's
come
total.
in lower than that actual
Okay.
number.
All right. Anyone else have questions, comments on that? Okay. All right, G is the, oh no. Distribution of municipal pension state aid. So we got our allocation. And the gist of it is it came back 129,000 and change higher than we budgeted for. So we have that money, and the options are, there's 3 options. One is to pay it back into the pension, put it into the plans, let it accrue, pay ourselves back for what we put in, or some hybrid down the middle, something like that. Ah, there we go. So, I don't know, Mike, do you want to add any to that? I mean, what
Yeah,
is your
so-
suggestion or what you,
So the funding for this state aid is derived from tax that's on fire and casualty insurance policies that are sold in Pennsylvania by firms that are located outside of PA. So if you've probably taken a look at your homeowner's insurance policy, it's through the roof. They're way high. So the tax goes up as the rates go up. So they generated more revenue than we had budgeted. Like we go based off of like a 10-year or 5-year historical average. And this one, because the rates have jumped up far more, we got more money in than we anticipated. Same thing happened last
Yeah,
year, but to a lesser amount. So because we pay our local share throughout the year so that we can get the benefit of the investments, we're now sort of overfunding the pension plan if we apply 100% of the overage or the difference in the budget amount. So as Jim said, you can apply all that into the pension fund and hope that your MMO in future years goes down, right? Because this has already been budgeted. You've already spent your local share. This is just great, right? Or you could take something in between that 129,000 and zero and use a portion of it for something. Or you could take all of 129,000 of it back and reimburse yourself for the money that we paid to date. For what it's worth, Joe Duda doesn't recommend the last option. He thinks obviously the most conservative thing is to put it all back into the pension fund because you do have those losses for 2022. Then you stand to benefit from that going forward. But it's available to you if you wanted to do something in between.
I have a question. So Joe Duda is the
Actuary.
actuary. Did the CBIDS team make any suggestion?
I did not consult with them. I think they're probably
Okay.
going to tell you, yeah, put it all back into the fund.
Right. So I know we're not in the business of timing the market, right? But
Yeah.
is maybe the financial guys, if we do it is now like a high point, like the Dow's just been going up, the S&P, all that stuff is like, is there a downside to
Depends
doing, this is when we have it, we put it in.
Depends
Is it
on
a
the
bad
first
time to
week in
put it in?
November.
I would in all honesty pay us back. I would do opposite of what the actuary said.
Okay. Is that because of your view on the market or just?
No, more so just we met our pension obligation. I don't see a need to overfund it. And because in the back of my mind, I've just been kind of ticking away at all of the expenses we've incurred this year that are higher than last year. And I just think that we could probably utilize that money back in the coffers.
See, I wouldn't do that. I would put it all back into the pension. Because I think that's, ultimately, you're gonna be responsible for that dollar amount, come hell or high water, and the more money you have in the account, I think the lesser impact is gonna have on future years.
So we do, and as the point is made at every meeting, we do manage it very conservatively. From a contribution side and from a,
Assumed interest rate.
assumed interest rate. So I that will always be there, but, it's a less of a concern for me than trying to overfund it. But we've met our obligations. And it's a huge line item for us.
Yeah, but we've always been ahead of the 8 ball with regard to pensions. And I would hate to see us drop back from that position.
Yeah, and we're certainly not skimming, we're not cutting back, we're not, we're just not gonna overfund it.
Yeah, the only thing that you did that was, I don't want to say unusual, and was almost out of necessity was we incorporated smoothing into, our MMO for this year. Just because of the market losses in 2022. And so you're not going to see the full realization of, any increases in the stock market immediately. It's going to, the increases are going to be smoothed out as well. So, I don't know that matters or not. That was like to Pete's point, we usually bit the bullet and we funded it and didn't kick the can down the road. The smoothing kind of kicks it down the road a little bit, but,
So if we contribute back in, we're just moving the can a little bit
closer.
closer. I mean, you can make totally
Yeah,
great
well,
arguments on
yeah.
both sides. I mean,
Point of view.
I don't really have a,
Basically.
Well, and maybe can we make the decision after the budget presentation?
No, you have to have it,
Yeah,
you have to fund it within 30 days.
30 days, yeah.
Of receipt.
What's our assumed interest rate on? the-
6.25.
6.25. And what can we do in the market with that same one? Better than 6.25?
Well, that's where it pretty much is, between there and your, bonds. You know, your assumed rate.
And because we have to invest, if we invest, we just probably have to invest into the bonds or.
Well, you've got this obligation and you need to be able to try and meet that obligation in some capacity and you have to put it in, you know.
Well, I guess my point is, if, we have an excess, do we want to put that excess into, the pension where it's earning X? Or do we want to invest that somewhere else where it's earning X plus?
well, it's all in the it's all market based. It's all.
Well, right, but that's why I said I don't know if there's the fund that where the
Yeah.
pension is.
Actually, the pension fund the investments can be a little more aggressive than any of your like general, municipal investments. Like they're just.
I think they were. I mean, the level of stocks was higher in our pension fund than.
Yeah, and that's actually a discussion that you're gonna have the next
Yeah.
pension meeting that you have, like kind of bring that down from like a
Right.
70-30 to a 60-40. Probably to some of your concerns, John, like trying to like not time the market, but get a little bit more conservative in terms of the investment risk.
By the way, these are the best problems, right? We're talking about
Yeah.
extra money, but spending money. So. I
Do
mean,
you
is
want
there,
to call, do you want to contact CBIZ and see if it makes a difference? If the inclination of the board, that I thought it was at the last meeting, was to go from a 70-30 to a 60-40, because we could, if it helps to put the money in to make that decision, is that something that you want to do? Or if it doesn't matter, then you've still got the opportunity to.
the split didn't matter. I mean, to me, I mean, and we're also taking their counsel too. So I mean, I don't.
Well, CBIZ said that they were updating their market outlook in October. We're gonna get back to us. So where that's imminent. Yeah, then, I think I kind of share some of John's viewpoint on, we run up a lot of bills and addressing the bills is really important. And right now, the investor sentiment and everything is kind of through the roof, which is usually a good time to get worried.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks it's great.
Do we have to pick one or the other, or can you split it?
Well, here's one thing you could maybe do. Again, you have the three choices still, but forget what Joe says if you don't agree with what Joe says, which is to take all of it.
Right.
But you could do something in between. Or you could put it all in.
Yeah.
And that something in between could be anything from a third to a half to a.
Right. Yeah, I
25%.
don't have a strong feeling.
Can you
honestly.
give any preview on the budget as far as like, is it gonna be a market increase?
I mean, I'm thinking that it's gonna be an increase, from where I am, but I'd have a better feel for that tomorrow morning.
Does that already incorporate what we're expecting for the rec center project?
No,
No
that
bearing.
would be a borrow that would be in arrears.
Yeah, okay. Because that could be down the line.
That, down the line, that's gonna impact your budget for
Yeah.
sure, just the way the municipal campus impacted your budget.
Right, right.
But once it's built in, you're kind of there. I guess the thing that you could do is you could reimburse yourself up to the 129 as part of this resolution. But then you've got that cash that if you wanted to put it into the pension fund somewhere down the line, you can do that.
Yeah, so you don't.
You're
yeah,
just hedging your bets now. You're saying, yeah, we're gonna do it, we're gonna put it in, but we're reimbursing ourselves. And then later on, you talk to Mike Glacken after we get their forecast or their outlook.
So we can put a note on those funds that if we do want to put them in the pension fund, we could. There's nothing stopping us from doing it
Yeah,
later.
it'll be in your general
Okay.
fund at that point. Yeah, I mean, you're a finance guy, what do you think?
Extra mode.
So there you go, John. If we just reimburse ourselves now because we want to know the budget impacts, otherwise we can just do that now. And if we decide to put it in later, we can.
I would think.
But Peter
Just
thinks,
going ahead and.
once you take it, you're never going to put it back in.
Right, reimburse ourselves, and then maybe seeing where we're at the end of the year
to take that out and maybe put it in before the end of the year.
Yeah, that's what, yeah, like, once we have our next pension meeting, you can make a decision.
I like that.
What if we promise to bring it back up, Peter? What if we promise to still
You want me to
consider?
write that into the resolution?
Right, right.
And
We
whereas,
promise, pinky swear, what are we doing?
We'll do a pinky swear.
you're gonna have a seat at that table, bring it up.
All right, so why don't, in terms of satisfying 30-day, we reimburse ourselves, get feedback from CBiz, what their thinking is. And pinky swear to Peter that we're not gonna forget about that option. Sound good?
Swear.
Pinky swear. Okay, that's H. I'm sorry, that was G. H will continue in executive. I, zoning board hearing. How do we handle this? Who talks about
I
this?
can do it.
Good.
It's basically a sign request. They want to put, Starbucks in channel letters and then the little circle with the
Lady said.
lady's head in it, the siren. I think
Mhm.
they call it.
No, it's a mermaid. It's a mermaid.
They call it a siren. I guess it's a mermaid. Well, whatever. That's what
Maybe it's
they
a
want to put
mermaid.
on both sides.
Very simple.
Yeah.
It's got more magic in it.
It's a slight increase in size. It's a slight increase in the number of size,
Okay.
of sign per side. It's not an obscene one. If it was an obscene one, I would have the plans in front of you and tell you that
Okay.
you should oppose it, but it doesn't seem out of the ordinary.
Do they have this on their current building?
No, and they don't actually have it on the one in, Drescher. I looked at it, this weekend when I was up there. The one at that, what do they call that? Where the redstone is?
Mhm.
It only has one sign on that.
What's their timing for opening?
I mean, they're working there now. I would
Yeah,
imagine
yeah, yeah.
it's gotta be.
And-
before the
and-
holidays.
Sweet time.
Michael, remind us too, that the drive-through will exit back out to the light in front of the Acme, or is it exit directly into Bethlehem?
No, it exits directly to Bethlehem, but you can go across the front of the building into the parking lot if you want to get out to the light. It'll be a right only out
Okay.
from the drive-through, but you can go left through the parking lot and then come out to the light to make your left if you want.
Okay.
Hmm.
And I presume, I mean, I'm not having any plans here, but I presume that this signage is not gonna impede.
You had the packet in your, agenda book that came to you.
Yeah,
But
the view of,
no, this isn't the pylon. This is
This is
the,
on
on the building,
Okay.
building mounted facial sign.
All right, J we covered. Go to J, K. K is the Recreation Center Master Plan updated schedule, so we'll announce that Wednesday, but also the next meeting for that is Wednesday, October 23rd at the Recreation Center. So I think we've done a pretty good job keeping the public informed on dates and progress, but I urge everyone to continue to do that. We want as many people to know what's happening, to give feedback if they are so inclined.
Just a quick update. I stood at the rec center table for some time, but also just walked out during community day and just had as many people as possible. I thought, I just want to commend MKSD for doing a good job hosting that. They had face painting, they had coloring for kids to submit for their raffle for winners. They did a really good job. And the Zoom meeting, I think, got some feedback that was helpful to have that access as well. So just want to commend everyone for
Nice.
that. Oh, one more thing. The paper notices on the building to let folks know, on the 23rd at least.
Mhm.
I don't recall those posted out. I feel like a week and a half ago, I didn't see any of the actual buildings. But
I'll
just-
find out.
Just double check. Thank you. Thank you.
and Michael, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Are the fields of, at Laurel Beach, are they incorporated in this plan?
So the playground is, and like, I guess the immediate area where the Pleasant Avenue used to connect through, but the Laurel Beach Park itself is not.
But they are, like, there was a lot of discussion of incorporating and being mindful of them
Yeah,
being there.
But I guess,
Complement.
artificial turf is not on the table for exploring for Laurel Beach as part of this.
It's-
Could it be done? It could be done.
aren't there deed restrictions on that in terms of
It has to
being,
be open space.
can
I don't know whether-
artificial turf be considered open
I don't know that
space?
anybody ever got that deep into it. We'll have to look at the deed restriction on it from Montgomery County.
Okay.
They gave us the funding for it. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I don't think anybody ever begged the question before.
But I think that would be a standalone project. I mean, whether
Yeah.
the rec center was there or not, if you did
The
or
only way
didn't do
that
it
it
there.
becomes part of it is if you just want to roll it into the cost.
Right.
But the turf isn't gonna have the longevity of the building. So that may factor into whatever kind of borrow you do. You know, like when we built these buildings, the board made a decision to do a 30-year note because they wanted the people who were gonna benefit from the building in 20 and 30 years to have investment in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas, turf is gonna last 10 years, maybe.
Yeah.
You don't wanna be
If-
paying on it for
The
years.
the only reason I brought it up is we had, the soccer games that were there, not last week, but the week before, they got all the rain, got like torn up.
Yeah.
And once that happens, they're not coming back, and they're gonna be torn up for the rest of the
That's why they,
season. So it just got me thinking, like,
yeah, they need to make the decision, all right, do we really want to get this game in, knowing what it's going to do to the fields
Right.
longer term? Or do we say, you know what, we're going to have to cancel this one or postpone it and come back?
right.
For what it's worth, I know in the committee, we discussed many times about incorporating World Beach, even discussing at some point, I think, whether they could even incorporate it as a matter of literally merge the property. It's obviously the deed restriction was a problem. But also even discussing, is there some stormwater management we can help assist in the process of doing the rec center as well. So it's certainly come up, and I think the architects are aware of that challenge, if it helps.
We built a detention basin on that property when we developed the field, the main field, and then the little practice area next to it. And there was no stormwater management there before. And then we developed a swale along the side to hold water, to keep the runoff from going on the beach lane side. So we certainly have to take care of the stormwater for the building and that site, most of which is impervious today, but as Tim mentioned, we're gonna have to treat that as though it's 20% meadow. So that'll get it improved.
Yeah, and I guess I speak to, sometimes it's come up, oh, can we do something unique or interesting with excess water from the adjacent site and recycle the water somehow in this new rec center? It could be pie in the sky, just things that have been discussed.
Very good. I forgot to mention, talking earlier to Jim, we were talking about, I don't know if it's related to the fee request, but Jim has agreed to go in the dunk tank next year.
Oh,
All right. Well, that does it.
wow.
Amazing.
Wait a minute.
What a guy, right? Goodwill for the community.
John, can you endorse that or not?
I'll see what my dreams tell me tonight.
I won't hold you to that. I don't want you to,
I don't even want to go there.
I think it's John's favorite activity. I've never seen him so anxious.
Dreaming of Jim?
No, the first ball hitting that red button.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
Did you even wait for the ball and hit it? Because that was last year. We just were hitting it with our hand.
Yeah, it got to that point pretty
Every
quick.
kid that
But when
came
he was up there, he had his hands and his feet. I'm like, John, you gotta let your feet hang, brother. He's like,
Cat on the trees. It was the slowest climb up that ladder to get
Oh,
even
yeah.
anywhere close to that plank that he had to sit on.
yeah.
Oh.
All right, speaking of disgusting water, any other questions on the recycling report?
I just have just a general question. When is our contract up with, when is the consortium, Republic Recycling?
That's
thing?
pretty new.
Pretty new?
I want to say at least 3 years.
3 more years?
Yeah. But the numbers are good
Yeah.
comparative to where they had been.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, much better. Yeah, certainly.
Great. All right, tab M, if you recall, so with some of the grant work that the township has been doing, is it the county that pointed out, the state pointed out, we didn't have a definition of community activities in our ordinance?
State, after
State, okay.
40 years, they finally, in the review of the performance grant for 2023, said, hey, you don't have a First, they said you don't address community activities, and we said, oh, yeah, we do, it's right here, it's the same exact language as in Act 101. And they said, okay, yeah, that's great, but you don't define community activities, and we're like, okay, you got
Okay.
us. So, how do you want it to read? So they gave us their definition, and Ian put together a quick ordinance for your consideration, and
Okay.
if you're okay with it, we'll announce it, and get it advertised for adoption next month.
Okay. Sounds like a pretty innocuous, simple one. There we go.
Bizarre, it's misspelled.
What's misspelled?
Or the-
Bizarre.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
ACAR.
Do you need an extra A or an extra Z?
It's missing an Oxford comma, but
Huh.
we won't go there.
That's bizarre.
You were gonna say that.
Predictable at this point.
These teams on.
Yeah. All right, tab N, the Pico Green Region Program that we're going to apply for to pay for this F-150 Lightning all-electric pickup truck that will be part of traffic control for the police department. Mike, this jumped out at me. 48,000, that's it? I feel like all these electric cars are.
So the Explorer is
This is
more.
the pickup truck,
Yeah,
yeah.
how's the pickup truck
Because
less?
it's real value.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this,
Ford wants to push them out. I mean, they're
Wow.
losing money on these things, there's no question about it.
Wow.
But they're real value.
Well, they're also, they've collapsed in prices. I mean, they've collapsed like.
Oh, yeah.
In the secondary market.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, they gotta push these things.
It's hard to sell them?
Because people don't want all electric, they want hybrid.
Hmm.
So,
Some people still like old.
yeah, but
well, and that's why we're proposing that it go to traffic safety and detectives, is gonna get the one that we have on order, because those aren't used 24/7. Like, a hybrid, you can use it 24/7, because you always have the gas to back it up.
Right.
The electric, you have to plug it in. We've got to remember to plug it in. So these are pretty much assigned to a specific user group. So they're responsible for them, and they'll get it done.
Yeah. When we buy this, are we gonna get the two-way function on the electric side? So it could act as a mobile battery pack or,
I don't know. I didn't get into it that close.
okay, that's a real neat feature,
It's
in
neat,
my opinion.
but it's probably not the $48,000.
It might not be, but it'd be something you.
I know it doesn't
Well,
have the dual
how much
motors.
more does that have? It just needs some sort of connection, sort of plug-in to use the battery?
Yep.
Okay.
You could power your house, you have a power
You can,
outage,
yeah.
you have one of these things.
Instead of a
plug your
generator.
Truck
Okay.
into your house and,
So the resolution before us is to,
Police aren't taking them home to plug in their house.
well, I know, but we could use it in emergencies. It would become a true emergency vehicle, you know.
Mhm.
daisy chain a couple of them together.
Hmm.
Why do you hold it?
Yeah, you could.
Power
There
these
you
new
go.
community activities.
Rent it out to the Franklin Field, geez, yeah.
so this authorization, or the resolution is just authorizing application for that.
Yep, no
Program,
guarantees.
so.
Probably gonna be very competitive, but it's worth a shot.
Okay. Very good. All right. And lastly, we have is that last? Oh, Library Advisory Committee. Dr. Aberly was selected by the school district to fill the library position allocated to the school district. So we know her. She's already on some boards, so we can just, do we vote on that? We have to vote on that?
You will have to vote on that, formally appoint her.
Okay.
I'd say maybe ask her if she wants to serve on multiple, I mean.
I'm assuming she already knows if,
So I begged that question of Emily, and she seems to think that Dr. Averly would like to stay on Parks and Rec be an advocate for folks with disabilities.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying, I'm just, it may be worth just giving her, presumably.
just to
she knows,
confirm, yeah.
But just give her a chance to confirm that she wants to stay on.
And there's no conflict because this is the school district's rep, right?
Yep.
Versus just one community member.
And just reflecting the Parks and Rec committee members being stretched a lot of different ways. She also officially serves on Lee Walnut as well. Can't recall, but it's just, it's a lot to, for one
well,
person.
Yeah, all right,
Lot of meetings.
Check in, just check in with her.
great,
I'll have you do that as well.
Okay.
okay. So that is the end of the book, ladies and gentlemen. Mike, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I do not have anything.
Anybody else have anything they need to?
2 questions. Michael,
Yes, sir.
Valley Green Road,
Yeah.
any follow-up with PennDOT?
No, but I saw one of the properties had, put topsoil and seed down in front of the house. I don't know if PennDOT did that or if the homeowner did
I think
that.
they did that.
They did that. Did you get contacted by somebody?
Yeah.
Send me their name and I'll
Okay.
get Ian to get, the maintenance guy from PennDOT.
Okay.
Out there. Cause he offered to go out there.
And very off topic, but, have we ever thought about doing anything with these walls,
With what?
with these walls?
Like paint a tiger on there?
Yeah, or like having like an art contest with like a high
So-
school to like do a Springfield themed.
So question for you in that regard, I've thought about this, oftentimes. The Historical Society is going to do like storyboards on a portion of the library in the main, like, reading area. There's a lot of history in this town. You think it's something like if they were interested for them to put, you know, stuff on these walls that like tell a story of Springfield Township in some way?
I think that's a great idea with the caveat of it can't be a lot of writing because they're not really readable, like unless
Yeah.
it's like a big thing. Like the ones where you walk by in the hallway, you can actually read about it.
Yeah,
It's
right.
not really reading right there.
Yeah, they
but-
can't stop and like
Yeah,
study it. They have to, has to be more like a map, a picture or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, how about,
I don't know.
how about the old oak tree? Where's that?
That's going into the library.
Oh, is
for
it?
To be refurbished.
Oh, good, okay.
a lot of real estate up there. I think it's a good
Yeah,
idea.
And I just thought, I mean, even if we put it out to like, Springfield, LaSalle, I mean, like, and just said, hey, take a historical moment from Springfield and, not, maybe like a couple proposals and like run a contest or something like that.
Hmm.
Just because I did happen to go by the high school, and they got really good artists there. Like really
Would
good.
that be like a permanent mural, you're saying?
Yeah, or it doesn't have to be permanent, it could be, I don't know,
Maybe an annual or biannual competition and we just read
yeah.
new,
Yeah, that's cool.
images all the time.
How about pictures of the commissioners? Up there,
There we go.
huh?
Just like,
Giant.
just
All
like
past and
judges,
present.
like old judges used to be up
Yeah,
there.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
Look like the Union League.
There's one spot downtown that had Bill Cosby. I think they took that one down.
I like the art idea.
I like the art idea.
I like that though.
Who's
Or
gonna run the art
historical,
idea?
Or the historical.
John's gonna run it.
John's gonna run it?
You volunteered apparently.
We could do that, we could explore that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're in charge.
All right. All right. And
Art's
would
good.
we want to open it up to any, school in Springfield or just the high school?
Just say like any Springfield resident.
Oh, it could be like a adult painter?
So are we commissioning this artwork? Are we paying for it? Is this
I don't
this
think-
voluntary or what?
If I'm hearing John right, it's not, we're not paying for it. It's a contest. The winner of which would be displayed here.
Prestige,
Should
yeah.
probably have a definitive period of time, so we're not obligated to have it in perpetuity and like hard feelings
Yeah.
when we take it down. We all get tired of looking at it.
But are we offering it a prize or what's the
Prize-
what's the
prize is still hung
incentive?
up.
Prize is that it's gonna be displayed,
Oh,
And maybe we
okay.
have a little ceremony.
And maybe there's more than one.
right?
Yeah,
I think it's a great idea.
okay.
I think people will be pretty psyched
Yeah.
to participate in that.
All right.
I was gonna say,
The whole
any-
two over here.
any galleries.
Yeah, we can move the clock.
Yeah.
Themed
Yeah.
gallery.
Yeah.
Well, flesh out, brainstorm, flesh out some ideas, some rules that you like brought up.
All right. Would be good.
We could do like the beginning in living color where you just like come with the buckets and just
Yeah.
some abstract.
Well,
All right, anybody else have anything else?
I just have a random question. Historically, has there been any questions about strong chemical smells coming from the the auto place on the road and at the crossing road on Bethlehem Pike? Crossing road. Coles, thank you. Like,
Yeah,
college.
for all, we'll all
I-
call.
Well, that's why I couldn't remember what the parent name is, because it's gonna be that in my head forever. Has there been the history of complaints of the chemicals coming from there or anything like that?
Years ago, there was a complaint that Mr. Mariello, when he owned Colex, took care of by putting in a new paint. Like, there's standards that they have to live up to and
Yes.
equipment. It sounds like something might not be running properly if that's,
Yeah,
I mean, they're not allowed to paint outside. They're not allowed to do any of that stuff. So it's gotta all be inside a contained heat booth.
All of the residents.
Yeah, is it the one right behind that property or?
No one Grove, actually.
Really?
They said, or a certain time, like, if they're sitting outside, they get a consistent smell.
Huh. Yeah, well, let us know, and if they have a time, like, we'll send Chuck Bailey out to investigate, he's the fire marshal, and he'll.
Okay.
Handle that.
Great. Anything else?
Caliber. Caliber?
Caliber collision.
Caliber?
Caliber collision?
Thank you.
Yeah. They're all over.
Yeah. East Coast, all over.
Yeah, I once saw one like two within 100 yards of each other. I was like, how's this? Yeah.
Tennessee.
We good? Any other questions, comments? All right. Folks on Zoom, we are going to head into an executive session, so it won't come back. So thank you for joining us.